Ever get stuck behind someone at the grocery store, you know, painstakingly counting out pennies?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe your card declined because of some ancient hold you forgot about.
Ugh, the worst.
We've all been there. It's like suddenly payments become this big, awkward thing.
It's true. And it's funny because our expectations for pretty much everything else have gotten so much faster.
Exactly. We're living in a world of instant gratification, but then, bam, payment systems remind us that, oh yeah, sometimes things are still slow.
Like stepping back in time, it makes you realize how much we just expect things to be easy and seamless now, especially when it comes to something as fundamental as paying for things.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, this whole evolution, or maybe even revolution, of payment systems.
It really is incredible when you think about it.
We've got some really insightful articles to dig into today, including this piece from FinTech Singapore that really doesn't mince words. They basically say that banks and financial institutions are under immense pressure to modernize their systems.
Yeah, no kidding. The piece really highlights the urgency of this whole thing.
Right. So let's talk about what's at stake here. What happens if these institutions, drag their feet and don't adapt?
Well, think about it this way. Imagine you're a customer, right? And you're stuck with a bank that's still using like outdated technology. Their systems are slow, their app is clunky. Maybe they don't even have those cool mobile payment options that everyone else is using.
It's like they're stuck in the dark ages of dial-up internet.
Exactly. And meanwhile, there are all these other options out there, banks and fintech companies that are offering this really slick, user-friendly experience.
This is kind of a no-brainer where people are going to end up taking their business.
Exactly. Customers are going to gravitate towards the companies that are making their lives easier.
It's like Blockbuster all over again. Adapt or die.
Right.
Much. And FinTech Singapore points to a bunch of different factors driving this need for speed. One that stuck out to me was this whole ISO 2022 thing. I'll be honest, when I first saw that, I thought it was some kind of like robot code or something.
It does sound a little intimidating, doesn't it?
But it's actually really important for all of this to work.
It really is. It's basically, it's like a universal language, but for financial institutions.
Okay, so like the United Nations of financial data.
Exactly. It allows them to communicate with each other much more effectively. And that means faster, more efficient, and more secure payments for everyone. Can you imagine trying to have a conversation with someone who speaks a completely different language?
Oh, I can barely understand people who speak the same language as me sometimes.
Well, imagine that, but with money, it would be chaos.
Total chaos. So ISO 2022 is like the translator that's making sure everyone's on the same page.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, you've got this whole rise of open banking, which honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
Oh yeah, open banking is a big one. Okay, so in the simplest terms possible, it's basically about giving consumers and businesses more control over their financial data. So instead of your information being siloed in different places, you can choose to share it securely with third-party apps and services.
So it's like giving your financial data a passport to travel to different services if you wanted to.
Exactly. And that opens up all sorts of possibilities for things like personalized financial management, innovative new payment solutions, and even just increased competition in the financial services industry, which is always good for consumers.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So we've got all these factors, ISO 2022, open banking, this constant demand for speed and convenience, all pushing for change. The big question is, how do you actually modernize these massive, complex systems that are basically like the backbone of our financial world?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
FinTech Singapore makes a really interesting comparison. They say it's kind of like renovating a house.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. So you could go for the full-on gut renovation, rip everything out, and start from scratch.
The everything must go approach.
Exactly. They call it the Big Bang migration.
Yeah.
And of course, that comes with big risks, but also potentially big rewards.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly.
It's exciting, but also, you better know what you're doing, right?
It's like deciding to renovate your bathroom yourself when you've never even, held a wrench before.
Yeah.
You might end up with a bigger mess than you started with.
Exactly. It could be a disaster. So yeah, that's one approach, but it's not the only one.
It's like there's no one right answer. It's more about finding the approach that makes sense for each individual institution.
Exactly. It's all about carefully weighing those risks and benefits. Like what works for a huge global bank might not be the right fit for a smaller, more agile fintech startup.
Makes sense. But speaking of adapting to change, I feel like we should talk about how we're all navigating this as consumers, because I swear, I remember when using a digital wallet felt like this futuristic novelty, and now I practically forget what cash even feels like.
Oh, tell me about it. I remember the first time I used Apple Pay. I felt like I was in a sci-fi movie, and now it's just like second nature.
Right. It's amazing how quickly these things become normalized, and the current trends in payment systems piece, it actually highlights this whole shift towards digital wallets and mobile payments as like a major trend.
Yeah, and it makes total sense when you think about it. I mean, it's just so convenient.
It's life-changing. I can basically walk out of the house with just my phone and grab a coffee, pay for groceries, even send money to a friend, all without touching my wallet.
Exactly. And beyond the convenience factor, a lot of these digital wallets, they actually have some really amazing security features built in, way more secure than using your physical card. Yeah, so there's this thing called tokenization, where basically instead of your actual card number being transmitted during a transaction, they use this unique, randomly generated code. So even if someone gets their hands on that code, it can't be used to make other purchases.
Oh, wow. So it's like a decoy almost.
Exactly. It's like a secret code that only works for that one specific transaction. So even if someone tries to steal your information, it's basically useless to them.
That's actually really reassuring, because I'll be honest, every time I use my phone to pay for something, there's always that little part of me that's like, is this really safe?
Oh, yeah, those concerns are totally valid, but the technology behind it, it's always evolving and getting more and more sophisticated. It's all about staying ahead of the bad guys. Plus, a lot of digital wallets, they offer these other perks too, like you can integrate your loyalty programs or get personalized deals and discounts.
Oh, so it's like having all your rewards programs in one place.
Exactly. No more carrying around that giant keychain full of cards. It's like having a personal assistant for your payments.
I like the sound of that. And speaking of things that make life easier, we've got to talk about contactless payments. I love the magic of just tapping my phone or card and boom, payment done. But honestly, I have no idea how it actually works.
It does feel kind of magical, doesn't it?
Like straight out of Star Trek.
Totally. But it's actually based on this technology called near field communication, or NFC.
NFC. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, your phone or your contactless card, it has this tiny little chip inside that emits these radio waves. And when you bring it close to a payment terminal, they connect and transmit your payment information securely.
Oh, wow. So it's like your phone and the terminal are having a little conversation with each other through radio waves.
Exactly. And because our range is so short, it's actually even more secure than traditional methods. Plus, no more fumbling with chip readers or swiping your card a million times.
And no more touching those germy keypads.
Yeah.
I feel like the pandemic really pushed this whole contactless thing forward, didn't it?
Right.
Oh, absolutely. It's like suddenly everyone was hyper aware of germs, and contactless payments just made so much sense. It's amazing how quickly those kinds of shifts in consumer behavior can happen when circumstances demand it.
Totally. Like out of necessity comes innovation, right?
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what other changes might be on the horizon. I mean, are there any technologies out there right now that could completely disrupt the way we even think about payments?
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to the elephant in the room, cryptocurrency. Is it the revolutionary force that everyone's been talking about, or is it all just hype?
Right, the million-dollar question. Well, the current trend source, they dive into this a bit. And, like with most things, it's not a simple yes or no answer.
There's always nuance, right?
Always. But, crypto definitely has the potential to be revolutionary. But it also faces some pretty significant challenges, both from a technological and regulatory standpoint.
Okay, so break it down for me. What are the potential upsides? What makes crypto so appealing as a payment method?
Well, one of the biggest draws is its decentralized nature, right? So instead of transactions going through like a bank or a government, they happen directly between parties on this global network.
So it's like cutting out the middleman.
Exactly. And that means potentially lower fees, faster processing times, and more transparency because everything is recorded on this public ledger called a blockchain.
Right, the blockchain. That's like the other big buzzword, right?
Totally. It's basically this super secure, tamper-proof record of every single transaction. And because it's distributed across this vast network of computers, it's virtually impossible to hack or alter. So theoretically, that makes it a really secure and transparent way to handle payments.
Okay, so increased security, potentially faster transactions, lower fees. It all sounds pretty good so far.
Yeah.
So what's the catch? What's holding crypto back from becoming like the main event?
Well, I think the biggest hurdle right now is regulation, or like the lack thereof. Governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to classify and regulate cryptocurrencies, and that creates a lot of uncertainty for both businesses and consumers.
Right, because if you don't know what the rules are, it's hard to play the game, right?
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the issue of price volatility. We've all seen how wildly the value of Bitcoin or Ethereum can fluctuate. And while that can be great for speculators, it makes it really difficult to use them as an everyday currency. I mean, would you want to buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin if you knew it could be worth twice as much tomorrow?
Or like half as much.
Yeah.
Talk about buyer's remorse.
Right. So it's tough. Until that volatility settles down, it's going to be a tough sell for a lot of people to embrace it as a mainstream payment method.
So it sounds like the jury is still out on whether crypto will actually revolutionize payments or if it'll remain more a niche thing for now.
Exactly. It's still early days, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Definitely a lot to keep an eye on. But I think this whole conversation just highlights something really important. At the end of the day, whether we're talking about digital wallets, contactless payments, even the potential of cryptocurrency, it all comes back to the human element, right? Like we're the ones driving these changes through our needs and our behaviors.
Absolutely. Technology is amazing, but it's only as good as the problems it solves for people.
It's like businesses are having to keep up with our ever-growing need for things to just be easy.
Exactly. The payment experience, it's not just some afterthought anymore. It's a crucial part of the overall customer experience. Think about it. You're shopping online, you've got your cart full of goodies, and then bam, the checkout process is a nightmare.
The worst. You're like, forget it. I'll just go somewhere else.
Exactly. It's all about removing those points of friction, making it so seamless that you barely even have to think about it.
Nobody wants to jump through hoops just to give someone their money, right? And it seems like fintech companies really get that. I mean, they've been at the forefront of a lot of these innovations, these really customer-centric approaches to payments.
Oh, absolutely. They're like the disruptors, the ones who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo and really push the boundaries of what's possible. We've seen some incredible innovations come out of the fintech world, like those peer-to-peer payment apps that let you split a bill with friends instantly, or those digital-first banks that offer these really personalized financial management tools.
It's wild. Some of these companies have become household names, and we don't even think twice about using their services.
It's true. It really shows you how quickly things can change in this industry. And it's not just about disruption either. There's a lot of collaboration happening too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of these traditional banks partnering with fintech startups, kind of leveraging each other's strengths.
It's like the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how that relationship evolves in the coming years.
For sure. So with all this innovation, all this collaboration, I mean, what does the future hold for payment systems? What's next?
Well, I think it's safe to say that things are about to get even more interesting. We're on the cusp of some pretty groundbreaking advancements in areas like artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, even biometrics.
Oh, wow. So we're talking next level stuff here.
Oh, absolutely. So for example, imagine a world where your payment gateway, it's not just processing your transactions, it's actually learning your habits, your preferences, it's personalizing your entire experience.
Okay, that sounds both really cool and a little bit creepy. Is my payment gateway going to know me better than I know myself?
Right. It's how much personalization is too much,
Seriously. But in all seriousness, that does sound really convenient.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine a world where your payment gateway, it automatically applies the right discounts or loyalty programs without you even having to lift a finger, or it flags a potentially fraudulent transaction before you even notice it.
Okay, that does sound pretty amazing. It's like having a personal finance guardian angel.
Exactly. Or what about wearable technology? Imagine paying for your groceries with just a tap of your watch. Or, some people are even talking about the potential for biometric payments.
Wait, paying with your face?
Yeah. Or your fingerprint, or even your iris.
Okay, that officially sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. But, I mean, the technology is there. It's really just a matter of time before it becomes more mainstream.
It's wild. So it sounds like the future of payments is all about like hyper-personalization, extreme convenience, and of course, always, always security.
Exactly. And who knows what other crazy innovations are just around the corner.
It's an exciting time to be paying attention to this space for sure. So the next time you're, tapping your phone to buy your morning coffee, or maybe even like struggling to remember your PIN at the checkout, take a moment to appreciate just how far we've come and how quickly things are changing, because the world of payments, it's undergoing a revolution and we're all along for the ride.
We certainly are, and it's a revolution that's making our lives easier, more connected, and hopefully more secure, too.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we've reached the end of another deep dive into the world of finance and technology. We hope you've enjoyed exploring these fascinating trends in the ever-evolving landscape of payment systems. Until next time, stay curious.